Design Review Commission meeting. Little administrivia first. So we have reopened to the public in person since October of last year. Commissioners are in the council chambers. Members of the public are invited to attend and participate at the locations on the agenda. As a courtesy and technology permitting, members of the public may continue to provide live remote oral comment via the city's Zoom video conferencing platform. However, the city cannot guarantee that the public's access to teleconferencing technology will be uninterrupted, and technical difficulties may occur from time to time. Members of the public desiring to provide comments as part of the meeting are encouraged to either submit written comments at least 2 hours prior to the meeting or to attend the meeting in person. All right, and for those of you who want to join by Zoom, our Zoom meeting ID is 899-4161-4886. The password is 507406. And if your computer or technology isn't working, you can call in by phone at 1-669-900-6833 and use the same meeting ID and password. Mr. Secretary, can we take a roll call, please?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Valia.
Here.
Commissioner Case.
Here.
Chair Krelling.
Here.
Vice Chair Killian and Commissioner Newsom have phoned in. They are either in conference or on vacation, will not be attending tonight, but we have 3 and we have a quorum.
Great, thanks. Moving on to the consent calendar, do we have anything on consent, Mr. Secretary?
We have nothing on consent, nor is it suggested that anything from the hearing be moved to consent.
Great, thank you. Then we'll move on from consent calendar to public communication. Now, this portion of public communication is for items not on tonight's agenda. So, under the Brown Act, the Commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, request clarification, or refer the item to staff. So if there's anyone who wishes to address the Design Review Commission this evening for something that's not already on the agenda, and what we have tonight is the Shadeland Secure Space Calicraft project, and then we also have, that's our one public hearing this evening. There will be a time for public comment on that hearing. So is there anyone in chambers who wishes to speak on anything other than tonight's public hearing? Not seeing any. Is there anybody on Zoom, Mr. Secretary?
There are some people on Zoom, but nobody with their hands up. If you're on Zoom and you wanted to make a public communication, please raise your Zoom hand. Seeing none.
All right, thank you. Then we'll close the general public communications. Moving on to public hearings. And we have one hearing tonight. Item A, the Shadeland Secure Space Calicraft project. Design review, conditional use permit, tree removal, sign exceptions, minor use permits. And what is the AUP, Mr. Secretary?
That is an administrative use permit, in this case for the sales and service of alcoholic beverages up till 11 p.m.
Great, thank you. So this is application Y22018. And does staff have a presentation?
Let me bring that up 1 second.
While she's doing that, this is Brittany Lenore. She's a new assistant planner, and I believe this is her first hearing with the Design Review Commission.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
And despite what the secretary may or may not have said, we're all really nice people.
I appreciate that. So, good evening, commissioners. My name is Brittany Lenore. I'm the project planner for this project. It's application number Y22018. It's the Shadeland Secure Space Calicraft project, and it is here tonight for a study session. So I would like to get your feedback on the site layout, building architecture, colors, material, landscaping, lighting, signage, including the sign ordinance exceptions, and the proposed tree removal scope. Before we begin, I do want to mention that the As the applicant continues to develop their plans, there has been some changes in the proposed colors and layout for the materials. So the plans that were included in the report and sent to you have since been updated, and the most updated is on this color material board, and I'll explain some of those changes further along in the presentation. Yes, we can pass around. And there's also glass samples up here.
About 800 pounds.
Yes, they're heavy. So the project's located at 2700 Mitchell Drive. So there are currently 2 one-story office buildings that are proposed to be demolished. The site would be redeveloped with a 3-story mini self-storage facility, an accessory one-story office, and a detached microbrewery with outdoor seating for Craft Brewing Company, which is actually an existing tenant in that space now. The site will also be developed with a new dog park, new site landscaping, and a community garden. Craft would also like to operate on a temporary layout during the construction. So a little more for the context. The general context consists of a mix of uses, including schools. We have the Contra Costa School of Performing Arts directly to the south. That's this here. We have the Springfield Montessori School to the east, the Ignacio Valley High School to the north in Concord up here. And there are also offices along North Wiggett and Shaylin's Self-Storage to the east here. And there are residential behind the site across the Contra Costa Canal. The site is also zoned business park and follows the business park land use category of the Walnut Creek General Plan. As required by the business park zone, the storage building is proposed in the center of the lot, so it is over 300 feet from the nearby residential zone. Also, there is an 8-foot sound attenuating wall that's proposed along the back of the property and part of the side, and that's to provide separation from the non-residential and residential uses. Lastly, as part of the site development, parking will be reconfigured. The existing tandem spaces at the driveway right here closest to Mitchell are reconfigured and replaced with landscaping, and the parking will be reduced overall to 145 spaces from previously 200. The building layout also meets the applicable business park development standards, including lot coverage, building height, setback, and parking. So tonight, the DRC is tasked with providing input on the design components of the project, the sign ordinance exceptions, and the tree removal permits. The project will then go on to the Planning Commission for review of the uses. A conditional use permit is required in the business park zone for both the Craft brewery use and the storage use. In addition, the Planning Commission will review the minor use permit that's required for off-site parking, which will be for the temporary Craft operations, and a special use permit is being analyzed for the potential for food trucks at the site. If the use permits are approved by Planning Commission, this will then come back to the DRC for the final design review. So from there, staff will then process the administrative use permit for the alcohol sales. So the building closest to Mitchell Drive is the office accessory for the storage facility, and you can see that on the site plan circled in red here. This building is a maximum of 16 feet to the parapet and 18 feet 2 inches to the top of the rooftop equipment screen. 3 walls will have a micro rib metal panel material in a medium gray color. The same material in a dark gray color is proposed at the roof to act as screening for the rooftop equipment. The remainder of the building walls will be sand finished stucco at the front along the north and west side elevations. Please note that there are some discrepancies between the floor plan and elevation plan layout, but those will be corrected prior to the final design review. The storage building is located in the middle of the property, noted in red on the site plan, and this will be 3 stories tall at 37 feet high, or 3 stories tall at 37 feet maximum. So materials will be the same sand finished stucco in shades of gray, and there will be groupings of metal panel, accents of blue metal siding, and that will help visually break up the building forms. The plans did not include this, but there is spandrel glass proposed at the areas between the floors, and you can see that right there. That is the spandrel glass, and the transparent glass is above and below it. So Calicraft is proposed at the back of the property is a 1-story with a mezzanine level, so a total height of 26 feet to the parapet. This building has changed the most significantly in terms of the color from the plans that you received to today. The prior design seen in this slide had alternating colors for the stucco, dark gray and light gray, but that has since been changed to be one solid light gray color. In addition, the gray metal panel where the Calicraft sign is has since been changed to a black metal panel. Lastly, the fence noted on the side, noted by that green arrow there, that is going to be a metal panel, and you can see that on the material board, it'll be the color copper penny. So Calicraft will have an extensive exterior patio. There is an enclosed patio noted here, and then an open gathering area next to that. 1 second. So it's approximately 3,000 square feet, seats 88, and the outdoor area will be serviced by a 320 square foot shipping container shown here. So the new landscaping is proposed throughout the site, including along the driveway and throughout the parking lot. 31 trees are proposed for removal, 58 existing trees are to remain, and 115 new trees are proposed throughout. This includes a range of species like coast live oak, blue oak, western redbud, and Douglas fir. So in terms of the signs, there are 11 signs proposed at the site with a total of 625 square feet of sign area. Please note that that staff report recognizes 2 sign exceptions, but there are actually 5 sign exceptions, so this slide is accurate, and I apologize for that. The signs requiring exceptions can be seen in blue circles here, so that's sign 4, sign 5, sign 7, and sign 6. So sign 4 is the closest to Mitchell Drive, and it is a 50 square foot freestanding sign. A sign exception is required because it exceeds the maximum 25 square foot size limit for freestanding signs. Sign 5 is a wall-mounted sign, and it is over the maximum height of 25 feet for wall-mounted signs, so it's on that 3rd floor of the storage building. Sign 7 is on the sound attenuating wall, and so it is considered a freestanding sign by the code. So that means that this site has 2 freestanding signs where typically only 1 would be allowed. Lastly, sign 6 is on the building wall, and it is approximately 400 square feet, so it exceeds the maximum 200 square foot sign area limit for building frontage. Staff also anticipates a exception for the window sign that's along the 3rd floor of the storage building, but we have yet to obtain details for this sign, and so staff will request those details dependent on DRC's feedback of this sign. Calicraft, as I mentioned before, is requesting a temporary operation while the site is undergoing construction. The temporary operation would be for on-site retail sale, so there'd be no on-site brewing proposed during this phase. So all access to the site, including the parking, would be through 350 North Wiggett Lane, which is off to the left. So staff is working with the applicant to get the necessary details and agreements in place to set this up with the adjacent property. In terms of CEQA, a CEQA consultant, First Carbon Solution, is working on the CEQA analysis for the project and is undergoing the analysis for the mitigated negative declaration. So to summarize, staff would like feedback on the design and site layout components of the project, including the architecture, colors, materials, landscaping, lighting, signage, and exception requests, and the tree removal request. So I'm available for any questions you may have. The applicant team is also here and ready with a presentation, and I thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Great job.
Can you roll it back one slide? Just roll it back one slide.
So this is the time for commissioners to ask questions of staff. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Valia?
Probably one question right now, and that's how many tables or how many, what's the seating capacity of the brewery right now, today?
Today, They
Maybe
do-
it's not a question for you, sorry. I mean, maybe it's a question for the architect or the,
Calicraft is here, but I know they do have some outdoor seating now.
Right.
I'm not sure if there's their indoor seating, but you could ask.
but the outdoor seating, yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Because you're talking about 88 seats?
Yes, proposed. I would say now there's maybe 50, but they can obviously correct me on that. You can clarify at the,
You can ask questions of the applicant, but the applicant would step up, state your name, and respond to the question.
Yeah. So if you want to come on up.
how many existing?
Good evening, Chair Krelling, Commissioners. The answer to that.
Can we get your name and who
I'm
you're with?
sorry,
Sorry.
Mike Diakos from Insight Property Group. I'm here representing the developer applicant on this project as part of the development team. The answer to that question is about 200 people.
Right now,
right
sitting
now.
outside?
Correct.
And you're taking that down to 88?
Well, 88 outside, CJ? Under the
only.
Under the canopy. 88 seats underneath the canopy, but we also have enclosed seating inside the building.
And you don't have that right now, I mean,
There's a small bar area inside the warehouse building, but gosh, I don't think the capacity there is more than 30 to 40 people, 47 people.
thank you.
Great. Commissioner Case.
I don't have staff questions. Thank you.
Okay. I have a few questions. And if you don't know, that's okay. They can, maybe questions we can get answers to at the next hearing. I was looking at the site map. Where do the kids park for the school that's on that general area there?
Yeah, so
Do they use some of these new spaces or existing spaces, or they have a different lot?
no, they have a different lot. So there is a parking agreement in place, and our engineering team is working with the applicant team to make sure that this does not affect that.
Okay, because I was thinking if we're reducing spaces and the school is using some of those spaces.
It will not affect school parking.
Okay, great.
School parking's to the right of the driveway, that's shown in the site plan on the left. So in the area, in the area to the right, it's a different property.
Yeah, it's a different property there.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there any staff, planning department opinion on bringing another storage facility business into the business park, which from my read of your memo is looking for businesses that have high employee counts, and I believe a storage facility would have a very low employee count.
Yes, there is a very close storage facility nearby, but there is a need for storage in the area in Walnut Creek. And in terms of the Shadeland Business Park, speaking to high employees, Calicraft will have employees available, and this does meet a lot of the other requirements of the business park, such as the campus style, and it will, I believe, visually at least, meet the intent of that.
Okay. And then, do we have any statistics, since we have an existing storage facility there, as to any increased crime related to having, because you get transient traffic and customers coming and going. Is there any statistics? And if not, is that something that we could get, or maybe as a part of the planning commission process they could get?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we have analyzed that specifically. I know Insight analyzed need, but I'm not sure that they analyzed security. But I can definitely ask that question to them and have a follow-up for you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think that's on everybody's minds these days. The shipping container, is that going to be a permanent fixture, or is that just a part of the temporary Calicraft ops?
It will be for both.
For both. And
Yes.
is staff supportive of a permanent shipping container?
With it being so far from the public right-of-way, it will not be easily visible, and I think, at least based off their current style, it does kind of lean more towards the industrial feel, so I personally don't think it would have an impact on the business park land use category, and it will have similar materials and feel to the standalone structure.
Okay. Then, okay, moving on to signs. Do we have anything in the city that would be similar to the size of the Calicraft Brewing Company sign, the large one?
Chip can expand on this, but I believe Gott's Roadhouse has a large graphic. I'm not sure the square footage is on that. I want to say like 100, 200, but nothing that I know of that's around the 400 square
Okay.
foot. Yes.
Because this would be precedent setting.
It would be, yeah.
Okay. And then the skyline sign, I guess it's going to be in the 30 to 37 foot range, somewhere up there. The sign number 4.
Yes, I can. I mean, the building's 37 feet tall, so it's around, yes, 30.
Oh, sign number 5. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Okay, and then this may be an applicant question. That window sign, is the sign recessed on that interior wall, or is it on the window?
It is on the wall, which is about 5 feet width from the window,
Okay, great, thank you.
and is not illuminated.
Okay, those are my questions. Do the commissioners have any other questions of staff?
Not right now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Does
you.
the applicant wish to make a presentation? Take your time. Computers never work when people are watching you. Don't ask me how I know that.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Krelling, Commissioners. My name's Mike Diakos. I'm here again representing the applicant Insight Property Group as part of the development team. I got just about all of our development team in attendance tonight. CJ Rogers, who you'll be hearing from shortly, who's our lead architect on the project, also with Insight Property Group. Parker Allen, our development associate. Ben Huber, our civil engineer at Kimley Horn, as well as our partner Blaine Lamberg at Calicraft Brewing Company. Very excited to be here. This is a project we've been working on with staff for the last several months. We work in a lot of cities, and staff has certainly given us a lot of their time in helping us understand development standards and design of this project. So we're greatly appreciative of that. Again, excited to potentially develop this project. It's not often in the development world where you're able to find a plus or minus 8-acre site in an infill market like Walnut Creek. And we sort of use that as an opportunity to develop what we would call a mini master plan with multiple uses. And I think that's what you're seeing tonight. Not only are we bringing a new Class A, highly securitized self-storage facility to the market that's going to be self-managed by us for many years to come, but also we're going to be building a new nearly 9,000 gross square foot microbrewery building, which is going to serve as Cali Craft's new headquarters, as well as continue to serve as the tap room and bar that the community enjoys today. We've spent quite a bit of time in Walnut Creek and plenty of great restaurants and bars around town, but you hang out at Cali Craft on a Saturday and you certainly get a local feel, and we're certainly proud and humbled to work with a local company and only strengthening their already great company. So, and I think, you know, what shouldn't be overlooked in this project too is, you know, you don't have to be a customer at either Secure Space or Cali Craft to enjoy the project. We have both a community dog park, a community garden that we're proposing, plenty of open space and trees. So this is going to certainly be a project that I think the local community of Walnut Creek could love and enjoy. So with that, I'm going to kick this off to CJ Rogers to talk about design.
Good evening. Yeah, CJ Rogers with Insight Property Group. I'm the Director of Design for the development company. If you go to the... Uh-oh. It's okay.
You could use the mouse, the roller.
Yeah, got it. That's okay. Brittany did a really good job of giving an overview on this. I think she stole most of my material, so I'll do my best to follow suit here. But that preliminary slide was the overall master plan of the project, and I wanted to note the 5 major components of this, which Brittany already talked about, was the self-storage facility, the leasing office component of that, the dog park, the community garden, and the brewery to the north. And so what we're looking at right now is the southern portion of the plan, a little bit enlarged. One thing to note would be the axis that's maintained for the existing curb cut that we've kind of grabbed onto here. There are some easements that we are maintaining within this site. And the reason I bring that up is that axis really has driven the layout of the site plan. Not only is the property irregular and flag shaped, that created some complications in putting down these buildings, but this axis created kind of the skinny linear portion on the side, and you can see how we leverage that as some of the community space and open space, maintaining some of the existing trees as well, and trying to create a face and entry point to the project to be able to bring some of those customers all the way to the back. We have, you know, the famous Cali Craft Brewery back there, and it's so far off Mitchell Drive. You know, we challenged ourselves in trying to create some sort of bookend from a site perspective to be able to get those customers back into the site. And spending time at Cali Craft, you know, at the forefront of their business model, from what I see, my interpretation was the community and the customer is right in the face of the brewery. It's outside. And the space has seemed to grow organically with the outdoor tables, the covered seating. We wanted to bring that sense of design forward. And obviously it's a lot more formalized now, but as we go to, flip down to the next site here. This is the enlarged northern portion of the site. We wanted to put that community out front. So that's the face of the project in the back. We wanted that energy and that life to be at the bookend of the sight line and the very, very front of Calicraft. So with that design decision taking place and the circulation that's created that axis, you can see where we started to divide the spaces up, looked at the operations of Calicraft where we have a defined outdoor space, a transitional space with this canopy and some formalized seating, which would be heavily used like today. And then we have the actual structure that they're gonna operate in that does house a bar, fixed seating, as well as some office space and conference rooms for this company. And on the back side, to the right of the plan there, you can see where the loading actually is. You know, this is an operating bar. They're gonna have deliveries and things coming in and out. We wanted to separate the two between the public side and kind of the working back of house side. The other successful portion of this plan is if you look at the circulation as you come in off of that flag, all of the parking is flanked to the right. And so we did a really good job of separating the traffic from that activated area where the public's gonna be sitting. So we can leverage all that outdoor space that's current today. And you can see where that outdoor bar and shipping containers at with the outdoor spaces. That's all gonna be activated along that axis that is anchored by the Calicraft building and outdoor bar. And that space in between is gonna be, you know, effectively how they operate today in a more formal setting, and then separate the parking and traffic and keep this as a safe kind of outdoor space that communicates across the entire site, depending on the weather. I mean, the weather's fantastic up here. You can go in and out of this pretty seamlessly. Let me go to the next slide. And that's the materials board. So I'll go to the elevations real quick. On the very, very top, you can see the office, which is 18'2" to the very, very top. We anticipate some mechanical screening as we develop that. There's a contrast in the panel. This is a very low slung building at the very entrance of the site. It's gonna be pretty unassuming. In terms of the color palette, we wanted to use these cooler tones, which do play off our branding color of this blue. But we want the branding, because the signs are relatively small across the totality of the site. We want the minimal use of color to pop off of the architecture and use these cooler tones to become backgrounds. And they're gonna be kind of stationary in the green vegetation and the existing trees that we're maintaining. On the larger building, visually, that's gonna be at the back side of the school on the end of the parking lot. And we wanted to break that building down. You can see there's a very clear move visually to create a base. And then the architecture lifts off of that, and that's an effort to scale the building down to make it a little bit more approachable and at the scale of the street from Mitchell. That's a vehicular scale that we want to address and make sure that that building is reading like an office scale that you'd see in the rest of the office park. So this right here are the Calicraft elevations. What happened with the slide here, but you can see in the center of the page, there's that big sign that was discussed previously. And I want to note that sign is facing Mitchell, but it's behind the storage building. It's going to be completely non-visible from the road. This is a branding icon that, you know, when you drive up and you come into the site, you're going to come through that sound attenuating wall, which will be blocking visually the outdoor bar, the outdoor spaces. All you're gonna see is activity and some lighting, and you'll see in the renderings. But that's really the marker of the entry for the bar. So as you come up from the parking lot, you're gonna be able to come past this monument that signifies the entry and enter the space that way. And then we have this wall, this copper-clad wall and metal panel that shields all of the operation, the back of house operations for the loading, the trash enclosures, that sort of thing are going to be non-visible to the public when they park. So this is a view from Mitchell, right at the curb cut there. You can see the proposed sign in the foreground, and I believe it's 25 square feet was the limit there, and we have 50, and you can see the reason why we're trying to get 2 tenants on this one sign. But looking at this image with the trees being rendered and the proposed landscape portion that's going in, you can see how unassuming the architecture actually is. A very small building on the front, relatively modest sign as you come in, and you can see how challenging the sightline would be to get customers back to Calicraft. This is a view of right behind the bus stop, looking at the office. We have some glazing that engages the street side and a little bit of signage. And this structure, one thing I want to point out is the back side of this, where you can't see on the opposite side of this, is where the dog park actually sits, and we have 2 public restrooms that we're going to operate and maintain. So they'll be open and closed with our store hours, but those are going to be dedicated for the dog park and the users of the garden as well. Access from the outside. This is a rendering of that primary corner as you come up the flag lot of the storage building. You can see the 2 different types of panel, metal panel in the foreground with some accent colors, and then the stucco really serving as the field color for the building. You can see there's a strong base once again, and then some articulation in the facade to create some movement and scale and variability in the building. There's a dog park. I believe it's 6,000 feet or 6,800 square feet. Be fully enclosed, and as we develop this design further, we'll look into the sorts of amenities for pets and dogs that would actually be in that place. But this would be fully fenced off with water fountains and the sort of amenities you've seen before, and then direct access to those restrooms, as well as dedicated parking for the dog park. The garden, did you see in this rendering today? What we'd like to do is engage with the community a little bit further on how to design this, but there's currently a garden there right now that's fenced off. We'd like to improve upon that, proposing elevated boxes, something that's a little bit easier to maintain, getting some ground cover down so that we can really manage what's getting grown and not have the ground cover come up through the ground. And I don't know if we need to fence this one off just yet, but what we're showing right now is an open community garden with dedicated parking. It does have an ADA stall, and then they would own and operate, the actual plants that's there, but we would have these elevated garden pads with watering built into it, and would have the appropriate depths and spaces between the two for easy access. So this is the view of the Calicraft building that's proposed. You can see we had moved to that stucco, which is that lighter gray tone on the top. We went away from the striping because of the articulation in the facade. I felt that the shadow would create enough texture on top of this to really separate that and break that down. I think that big black panel creates a nice anchor and entry point. So there's a focal spot for the entry. And you can see how the canopy and the wall on both sides of that really draw you towards the center of the building. And once again, the branding of Calicraft, you can see the signage is relatively small there, but it's the community and the people, the activity below that's really at the face of this building. This is a view from the garden space, or the open side on the left-hand side of the plan, looking back towards Calicraft. We do have a road that goes through there. We're proposing an elevated pad to connect these two pretty seamlessly. And you can barely see on the left-hand side there, we do have a spot allocated for the food trucks. We want to keep that going as well. That's going to create the edge condition of this space. So you'd have the brewery in the background there with all the corresponding outdoor spaces and enough room to park the food trucks to service those as they do today, and then people can get in line and then spill back out onto the outdoor seating, patio seating, or they can go back up into the bar and eat as well.
About how much more time do you think you need?
I think I have 30 seconds.
Okay.
I'll wrap it up. Another view below the canopy, some lighting, and then looking back, and that's the shipping container in the background there, which is the other edge of the project, and you can see some formal lighting. Site lighting will keep this thing nice and open at night. And I think she already covered these, the signage. I think that's it.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, this is the opportunity for commissioners to ask questions of the applicant. So, Commissioner Case?
I do have questions. Would you speak a little bit about why the storage building is located in the site plan closer to Mitchell than Calicraft?
Yeah, you're gonna pull that site plan up. I can speak to the real reason for that is because of a setback from the residential zone. There's a 300-foot setback off the houses that are across the creek, and that building is tucked up against that setback, and it can't go any further to the plan north.
Okay. Okay. So when you're turning onto Mitchell Drive, as you're going down the road and we're trying to bookend it with Calicraft, is there something that could happen along that roadway that makes it obvious, like, keep going, there's something down there?
Yeah, so I think one of the signs, sign number 7 right there, which is actually mounted to the sound attenuating wall. So there's a pretty clear definition between the two, the storage portion of this and Calicraft. They actually own, they're gonna have all of that space below with the wall around it, the parking and everything. And that wall will be visible from Mitchell. And I'm hoping to get a sign there to really mark that entry, right? So as you're coming there, there's gonna be, a condensing of that space as you come down through that road and mark an entry into the Calicraft portion of the project. And we'd like to get it as big as we can to ensure that visually you know where you're going on there. I think that we can, from a landscape standpoint, start to accentuate some of those sight lines as well and make sure that the focal points are all driven back towards Calicraft. I think it's very important to us, and it's something we can use a lot of different tools to push people back there. I don't think signage is the only way to do that, but we're balancing between not having the sound escape the site as well, and we can't put large flashing lights next to the residences as well. We're aware of all these things. But once again, I think visiting the site, it's the people and the activity that's gonna draw you back there, and you can imagine those string lights up there with the people below. I think going through that office park and seeing that activity in the back is gonna be, speaking to how they operate now, it's kind of this little hidden gem off the main road.
CJ, can you use the mouse right there and point to where that sign would be on that attenuating wall and its relationship to the driveway?
Right there. So you can see where it's small right there, but it's sign number 7. So that would be the one that'd be visible from Mitchell, as well as sign number 4, which is the smaller one down at that's in the rendering there.
Okay. So who will maintain the community garden and the dog park?
That'll be Insight Property Group.
Okay. Okay. And who are you thinking are the users of that? Like, will there be somebody who,
Yeah.
I don't know who walks their dog there.
Yeah. So there is an animal hospital, just a few buildings over, as well. But the community garden's there today. I am not sure who the actual users are of that, but my understanding is that it's a garden that's being cared for today by some of the public. And so we'd like to continue that. It was expressed to maintain that garden. And the dog park came because we are at the end of that trail system that comes around and actually snakes around the office building on our neighbors and culminates. It's going to culminate right at the Calicraft, which is kind of cool. It culminates at Calicraft, and people do walk their dogs up and down that path, and we thought that it could be a nice anchor to the path. You have your dog, you can go get a drink, walk your dog, and get to the park and meet up with some friends there. So we thought it was a nice corresponding use to the Calicraft and storage.
Okay, and I know I've asked this question before and everyone hates me for it, but is there any opportunity to connect to the Contra Costa Canal Trail, like through the back of the property?
I'll let Mike, you want to speak to that? Something we've looked at for sure.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it was actually we're on our third round of comments from planning and various departments, and it came up on the latest round. I think it would be a challenge, honestly. You do have a bridge that sort of connects the trail across the canal to our neighbor's property, which is the existing office asset. We would have conversations with the owner of that office asset. I think it's personally a tough sell. They are operating an office building. For them to grant us a permanent easement across their property, I think could be problematic for them. It could create ongoing maintenance issues. So I think, step 2 would be, well, can you build a new bridge? From a development and entitlement standpoint, I think it would also be a challenge. We have kicked off CEQA. That was not included in our project description. So it would be somewhat backtracking. I think there would probably be lengthy permits required with the Army Corps of Engineers. But I think it's something we're going to certainly explore with our neighbor, but I do think it could potentially be a challenge.
Okay. Sorry, I only have a couple more. Where we're doing the raised crosswalk, in some of the renderings, it shows a similar paving pattern and lighting. They're connecting that and stuff as well. So will it feel visually connected, and will it be obvious to somebody in a car, like, turn right and park, don't drive through this social space?
Yeah. So this view right here, I think, shows it. So that's looking out the canopy. So I'm proposing to elevate the roadway between the two kind of spaces because it's bifurcated right now. And we're trying to leverage the open space that's there on that one side, but we do need to get emergency access around, right? So we're elevating that to, one, slow traffic down and deter people from wanting to go back around the building, because that's really the back of house side. But we have to keep it open. It is an emergency access road. So I think that there's ways to slow cars down. You've seen this at like retail centers and things where the paving changes and almost becomes like a speed hump. And we can do some wayfinding signage or something, parking this way as you come in. Because I think that would be very, very, very strong move to separate those two and ensure that this outdoor quality is maintained like they're operating today.
Okay. And then I know that Calicraft does well right now.
Yeah.
So are there things that are not working there that we're changing with this new site plan, or are there things that are working that we're making sure we're doing in this future one? Like, I just want to understand how it's an upgrade.
It's probably a better question for Blaine, maybe. Yeah, come forward.
Can you come up, please?
So hello.
And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, Blaine Lamberg. I'm the founder of Calicraft, and thank you so much for all your support over the years from the city. It's been fantastic. So I will say, when the project first started, you can imagine we were concerned, right? It's been my life's work to be able to create this and create the community space that really brought Walnut Creek together and really brought that area together. And I think that if you look over the course of how we started, we thought we were just going to be a really, literally almost like a small wine tasting room with grandeur of being something bigger. It happened faster than we could have possibly imagined. And the way that we're currently set up, which we would have never thought this would have been the case when we started, is that we used to have to lock all the, basically have all the people so you couldn't go into parking lots before COVID, right? And so we were very connected, where you couldn't actually have more of the outdoor space that we've all now become accustomed to over the last couple years with COVID and some of the things you guys have done to support us. I'm getting to, so what this is doing is actually opening up and increasing, I wouldn't say increasing in terms of space, but increasing in terms of ease, in terms of not just consumer, in terms of how they can function within the space, but also for us as a business, how we can actually control the space. One thing that was fantastic about COVID is also learning how to understand your customer, learning how to understand how they work, learning how to understand how the community works. You know, one of the things when we first were getting the last time we were here and talking and hearing, we were one of the first businesses ever that ever had an alcoholic license that had never had anything called on them, but actually we're the ones that called if there was anything that we needed to have done. And so we always have taken that perspective first. And so when you look at this, what this is actually doing is enabling us to have the space that we currently have now, integrate the two together with a simpler way for us to be able to not only control what's going on around us, but also make it more engaging for our consumers to interact with not just each other and the community, but also what we're trying to do as a brand and what we're trying to do with Walnut Creek. So I think that that's how this is doing that. And we've become accustomed to learning how to make these spaces so that they feel like you can't really cross them, and make it feel so then also this will help us to enclose that for kids, families, dogs. We have a ton of them. And so that, and when you talked about dogs, we are actually having a Halloween dog competition, the dog, the costume competition again this year. So there will be lots of dogs there. So this will actually help us to further take what we've taken from the very beginning and engage it more with the community in integrated space.
Okay, and then another question I think is helpful for you. In some of the renderings for the interim space, are there plans for shade?
Oh my gosh, yes. So,
But
yes, especially with the last 2 days, this even becomes more relevant, right? And if you've ever been to Calicraft, you know it gets hot, right? And we've been pretty darn lucky that those trees in that parking lot over the last decade that we've been there, we had just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, have grown a lot. And what you guys have allowed us to do with the parking lot enclosures have really helped us out in terms of understanding shade. So yes, we definitely need to have some shade components in that interim space, or else that will really hurt us. Like, we recognize that. On the flip side, what I would say is now that you can imagine, if I've gone through this in my head literally hundreds of thousands of times, right, is there are 2 large tree structures that run the length of that space. The sun, as it sets over the years, and when it's in its hottest time period, will actually set at almost a 45-degree angle at Calicraft. And the 96% of our clientele that is there during the week shows up after 2/3 sunset. During the weekend, 75% of our customer base shows up at that same period of time. So we tend to be a later time period business. And so we do have some really nice built-in shade there. However, to your point, that midsection needs to have some sort of shade component added to it, or else we will be in trouble in the middle of the summer.
okay, so my final question, I swear. So
You could ask me as many
mentioned that
questions as you want. I could talk about this all day.
Being as there's a lot of activity and it's in the evening and
Mm-hmm.
it's changing the dynamic of the space, and there's a community garden and a dog park, do you guys plan to chat with the community and the neighborhood and just make sure that it's prioritizing what they're after and what they think would be a benefit for them?
We've put that in the beginnings of what we do as a company. I think the way that we talk about what a tap room actually is, like, we don't call it a bar, it's a tap room. I mean, really, that's what it is community space. What we're asking for people to do is give us their community feedback in terms of what they're looking for. When I started that space, I thought it was just going to be inside, right? And what the community wanted was outside. We built that entire indoor space, and the first thing people did, they came in the first day. We put on Facebook that we were opening. We thought there'd be 10 people there. There were 75 people in line, and that was all community-based. And the first thing they did was they got a couple samples, and they went outside after we spent $300,000 on the inside of the space. So what we've constantly wanted to do was to put the community first and what they're actually looking for. And so we will constantly get community feedback in terms of what that looks like. And the dog park space, I can tell you right now, that's very Calicraft. And the garden, especially since one of our first collaborations was with Alice Waters and Chez Panisse, and we donated all the proceeds back to the Edible Schoolyard Project, which helps schools globally to educate kids about the importance of food, growth, and sustainability. Fits right in with the ethos of who we are, and I think where Walnut Creek wants to take itself.
Okay. Others have questions?
Yeah, but if you wouldn't mind hanging out for 1 second. Commissioner Valia, do you have any questions for
Yes.
the Calicraft owner specifically?
Oh, no, not for you specifically.
Okay.
Okay, I just had one question.
Sure.
So, currently you're operating in a part of the shade lens where there's not much business activity around you.
There's nothing,
right?
man.
It's dead.
Yeah.
And now, if the secure space is successful,
Yeah.
you're going to have a lot of activity. And I don't know what the hours are for people to access talk about that later, secure space. But just curious, how you feel for your business about transitioning from a somewhat of a dead business parks parcel to what will become a very, I think, active business park parcel.
So I put Calicraft out there to actually help start business development out there. So when I first came to, actually I was called in before, as I was getting the permits out there, and they thought I knew about the field house that was going across the street. I didn't. But the reason why I put Calicraft out there was I felt like that was a hole in the middle of a beautiful city that had all these people that lived out there that wanted somewhere to go. And there was all this opportunity for commerce and business to come into that area that's outside from what we have as an amazing, bustling community and really an commerce space here in downtown, which we should all be proud of. And so the more that we do, in my personal opinion, to develop the shadelands, to make it become a bustling sense of commerce, not only selfishly does that help my business, but I think it also grows what we are creating here in Walnut Creek in terms of understanding how our business, our city looks from a commercial space downtown that attracts people from people are no longer driving into the cities to go to the shopping. They're coming here. However, what that also does in some ways is also makes it so downtown no longer feels as much like a local community, even though we're doing a great job to encourage that. These enclaves within our community that we have that are there, I think are nuggets of what could become the Walnut Creek in the future. And I think this would help that.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Case, did you have any more questions for the applicant?
I thought of one, but I can't remember what it was, so no.
Well, okay, Commissioner
Blaine at
Villa.
Calicraft, just email me. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So yes, I guess we're focusing on Calicraft because I would say it's the only space that shows some cohesion with the park and with the green and with the building itself. But I would like to learn a little bit more about the self-storage facility. I mean, CJ, if you can tell me how that works, and because I see a huge box there that had sort of a rhythm of vertical elements that were stucco, different types of stucco. You're making that into a single stucco, a grayish colored thing with some panels. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I didn't get anything on the self-storage facility
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, from a design standpoint or
Yes.
operationally?
Yes, both.
Okay, yeah. So, let me see if I can pull up a rendering here, just to speak to. Oh. Okay, so, storage it's a challenging, architecture is pretty challenging. It's not active. You have very little traffic actually coming in and out of these facilities. So your comment about it being active, we do have clients coming in and out, but it's comparatively to other types of uses, it's a tenth of what you see at like office or, schools. You don't see any traffic coming in and out. So ultimately they become kind of these big containers, and the scale of these things can be challenging to digest. And so from a building standpoint, I think driving around Shadelands, we do have some very large office buildings, some tilt structures. This was going to be to scale of other buildings that are there. Although it is 3 stories, our floor heights are pretty tight. So we're looking at, like a standard office building you're going to see in the garden. I think that from an architectural standpoint, we do a lot of these around the country, and it's hard to represent a structure this large in these little thumbnails and these elevations. But I can probably flip through some of our portfolio of the other facilities that we're building that are quite a bit larger than this one. But we do a very good job of breaking these buildings down and creating focal points and changes in scale on the architecture. In this particular image here, you can see a loading zone, and then the display, we call the display, the glass portion of that. It really does draw the eye to these points, and then you have this kind of connective tissue in the building, which it's all about creating rhythm. So you don't perceive these buildings broadly like that in real life. You tend to see them at an angle, closer to like what you see in the rendering there, and it compresses the sight line a bit. And so that's, you can see where you have those, the striations of the facade, and then the base kind of coming up, which is, calling back to more traditional style architecture. It's very contemporary, but we are using some traditional moves of having a base and a hat and some sort of cornice up there, and those have proven to, bring the scale of a building down. And you can see the metal panel as it comes down, has that glass piece, which is the most visible, representative, something you see in an office space. It's going to look very, very nice. And then that cornice comes around and connects to the loading zone. These are all architectural moves that you'll see in many buildings, but in my opinion, after driving through Shadelands, this would set the standard for a lot of buildings that's out there. The quality of the material, as well as the design of the building, it will stand on its own comparatively to some of the office buildings and stuff that's there. I mean, a lot of them are old and dated, but it'll fit from a scale standpoint and material standpoint as well.
So help me again. So you're saying the corner, those are all metal panels,
Yes.
and the base, the grayish portion is stucco or
Well, in this
different color metal panel?
in this image, that corner, we're once again breaking the building down here. About a sixth of the facade is this metal panel box, creating a hierarchy on the facade. That what you're seeing right there is metal panel, and it does have a metal panel base. But as you go along to the sides, it goes back down to stucco to make sure that metal panel feels important. If we wrap the whole thing in metal panel, it looks like a refrigerator. You need to have some important pieces, some calling cards, and then let some background be background. And that's how, personally, I address architecture as we scale these big buildings down.
So it wraps around from the corner to the right, I mean, on the rendering.
Yep.
That top portion is all metal panels all the way to the end.
Yeah.
In between, there's stucco, and then again, there's vertical metal panels, and then there's stucco again.
Yep. Yep.
And the parking for the self-storage facility is the 5 parking spaces up front. That's basically it.
Yeah, we don't need very much parking. I don't have the parking table in front of me. I believe there's 6. It's 24 total, which is somewhere next to the dog park and things. But we had 5 or 8? 5 loading zones. Those are oversized parking stalls for convenience. There's 3 entrances to this building, where people can come in and have direct access to an elevator core to go up. That's the ones you see on the left-hand side of the storage facility. And then we have a handful of more spaces strategically located along that drive next to the dog park, the garden, and as well as a leasing office. So if we're getting a new customer in, they're going to stop at that leasing office, rent a space or something. But once they're, maybe they come twice a year or something, they would have their own keypad or key card to come into the facility at those controlled access points. And we're very big on security, tons of cameras. We monitor who comes in, who comes out, what time they're in, and we even control what floors they can get to on the floor. So security and maintaining high quality clientele is something that's first and foremost in our operations business. And we found that having high quality security attracts high quality customers.
Now, I get a better sense of the self-storage facility. Going back to the microbrewery, it seems to be, I think we're all happy with what's going on with the microbrewery. Well, I'm happy with what's going on with the microbrewery. My only concern was that you have that, actually that road
Yeah.
separating the park from the microbrewery. Did you ever give thought probably of having that road on the east and on the west end of the site, and bringing the park and the brewery together? And then again, I mean, if everything becomes a big park and the road is, it's a service road, like you just said, at the end, then I think that'll make it a lot more attractive.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad you brought that up. There are some other underlying challenges that we didn't speak about specifically. There's some stormwater easements specifically in the road right there, and trying to get that amount of square footage. We can't build over that easement. So the building needed to be either on the left or right-hand side of that. And, you know, we tried a few configurations, and the building ended up just being too far on the side, is long and skinny. And from an operations standpoint, we want to be able to separate the loading and the public side of this. And we weren't able to get access if we had the entire building on the left-hand side of that road. It was just inaccessible.
So you're saying it's not possible?
Possible it is, but
Because
I don't think the building,
I see all the, I mean, I see the
No.
strip of the open space. I
Yeah.
see it's, gonna use a bad word here. I think it's residual. It's like what's left over.
Mm-hmm. yeah,
In the case of the brewery,
Mm-hmm.
you can make it part of the building. And when I mean, you said you have 88 seats outside. Currently, it seats 250 people outside. What a great opportunity to make that a big park in front. I've been to, I'm your client. I go there very often, and I love it. I love the live music. I love the taco trucks or the food trucks. So, I mean, and it's very informal the way it works right now, and it's very successful. But if you do gather, if you make that a big chunk of space in front of the brewery with seating,
Yeah.
and everything goes on there. I mean, the seating, the music, the trucks, everything goes on in the same space without that road interrupting the whole sequencing of things that go on.
yeah. No, that's a good point. I think it's something we can explore further, for sure. You know, I really pride myself on developing site plans, and I'll never say anything's not possible. You know, we have some challenges with emergency access, circumnavigating the building, those sorts of things. But there's, you know, we can always, you know, that's what's fun about design. You can always push things. So
Yes, yes, from one designer to another designer. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
pops out. I mean, like, why do
Yeah.
we have a road interrupt in this park? I mean, it's understandable that there's little to do on the other, on the south portion of the site.
yeah,
But on that portion, you can be very creative and integrate that building to an open space.
Yeah.
Not have a road in between. Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you for talking a little bit about the security. Will there be any actual security guards on site?
We typically on a facility of this size, we don't have, you know, staff, but from experience, we have many facilities. This would probably garner 2 managers on site at all times. But we have like off-site security, hundreds of cameras on this, and we have 24-hour monitoring at all times for our facilities across the nation.
So that was one of my questions.
Like a physical security guard, we found that cameras are quite a bit better than a person on site. Yeah.
So I was going to ask total staff, so you're going to have 2 managers working there full time, it sounds like.
At any given time, yeah. We'll probably have 3 to 4 employees, but 2 at any given time working, and maybe a part-time. It's a pretty large site, and the distance between the leasing office and the facility might garner another half-time employee.
And how many storage units are on there?
How many storage units is?
Oh, thank you. Sorry, my mic wasn't on. How many storage units?
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, it's 155,000 gross. Gosh, I'm terrible at math in my head. So you're probably achieving about 75% efficiency, so net rentable. So 110 net rentable maybe. Average size of a storage unit, 10 by 10. So probably call it, you know, don't quote me on this, but 1,100 self-storage units.
Okay, so 1,100, and then what I'm ultimately trying to get at is how many of the customers do you think would be there at any given time of day? You know,
Yeah, so we have a lot of data that we could follow up with. Speaking openly about this, we see typically 10 to 15 visitors per day, which is very, very low. And that's speaking specifically for traffic. Very low.
1,309 storage units.
1,309. She's better at math.
Thank you. All right, but only about 10 to 15 people
Visits, yeah,
per day.
yeah.
So there's never probably more than a few people stacked up at one time. That's why
Yeah,
you're doing
it's-
the 5 parking spaces.
Yeah, it's pretty low, and that's when we're up and operating. During lease up, it might be more. You know, the first year there's more people coming because we're getting our customers. But once we've stabilized, you know, people come in and out of these facilities a majority once or twice a year. So you can imagine it's just not a lot of traffic.
So you brought up an interesting point. So when you first open and you're doing your sales, is there going to be a big surge? What's your experience?
I'm not on the operations side. I'm speaking out of turn here, but you know, they'll get maybe 30, 40 customers a month. They're closing. So it's probably 2x what we typically see until it stabilizes.
Still not that much.
No.
I just
No.
trying to think, make sure that the flow,
Yeah.
you're not going to have this big surge of customers coming in to rent space and nobody can get past them to get their beer.
Yeah.
Because that would be the tragedy, right?
Yeah.
If you
We have larger facilities in this country with like 3 parking stalls, and we operate just
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
All right, great. This is interesting learning for me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I'm sure you guys have done this. Just out of curiosity, was there any kind of market study done that shows that we, in this area of Walnut Creek, really need 1,309 storage units?
Yes. And we can follow up with a full report on that as well. We do extensive market research, and this is definitely an underserved area, which is reflected in the rents. It's undersupplied. Yeah, there's a big need for storage in the area.
Okay, great. Is it typical to have the leasing office so far from the building? I'm guessing maybe it has to do with the flag lot. But
Yeah, most of this is driven by the flag lot. I think in an idealized world, we'd like to consolidate our operations. This isn't. We do have quite a few facilities that operate like this, so it's not unheard of. But with the flag lot, we wanted to get something marking this. Otherwise everything's hidden back there.
Right.
You're not going to know.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my questions. Any other questions from Commissioner Case or Valia? No. Good. Great. Thanks. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Now it is time for public comment on this project. So if you are in chambers, if you would please come up to the lectern here, and you can hand your speaker card to Brittany. Are we doing, Ms. Secretary, are we doing 3 minutes tonight or 2 minutes? 3. Okay, so you get, yeah. Thank you. So you get 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Please
you very
introduce
much.
yourself.
My name is Carol Vogel. I'm here representing myself, my husband, and the 15 people in our community that have signed this petition against the outdoor facility that is being proposed. My objection is to the outdoor area. I've heard a lot about community tonight, and being part of that community, I feel that we are underrepresented. I have not heard from the gentleman from Calicraft ever. I've made many complaints about the outdoor facility and the noise and the nuisance that it has brought. My objection to the outdoor area is because they bring entertainment, bands, groups, and food trucks with speakers and amplifiers that create a nuisance to the peace and quiet of our community. A gentleman here at the Walnut Creek Community Development Department told us a year ago that they were not to create any noise more than 50 feet from their venue. Well, that didn't happen. You can sometimes hear the music far away as De La Salle High School. We were also told that if we were to call Calicraft, at the time we hear the music, that they would turn it down. Well, that didn't happen either. One manager told me that she had all she could do to keep up with her customers, but she would do what she could, and that didn't happen. We were told to call the police, but they never worked as they never came to our aid because there was always another priority that they had above our complaining about the music late at night and the volume of music and the nuisance that it created. There are special events and special event nights brought in on several weekends that creates even more loud noises and traffic concerns. This area is not fenced in, and I didn't hear much about a fence either tonight. It is not fenced in, so children who come with their parents play unsupervised in the parking lot and eventually find their way into the neighboring parking lot and that garden area that they're proposing as a garden now with raised gardens and that kind of thing. Children play in that area. They also play around the eucalyptus trees in that neighboring lot. And those eucalyptus trees in that area are extremely dry and very dangerous for these children. We thank God every day that a match hasn't been lit in that area from smokers who just walk across the parking lot. So there is no fenced-in area. And this play by the children goes on many times for hours and also disturbs the peace. What I would ask is that the restrictions be imposed about the noise and in accordance with the use permit of December 2017, specifically section 2, number 2, B and C, I would ask that those restrictions be withheld and that these special events conform to the use permit. And also, I didn't see until tonight this idea about this lighting that is going to go on until 11 o'clock. How is that going to impact all of us, myself, my husband, and these other people who live in our area? How is all that lighting going to affect us?
Are you just about
I'm finished.
okay, thank you. Just because
Thank
we
you
went
very
over the
much.
official time. Thank you for coming this evening. Is there anybody else in chambers from the public who wishes to address the commission on this topic? And Mr. Secretary, do we have anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak? And if you're on Zoom, please use the Zoom raise your hand feature to let us know you'd like to address us.
There are some attendees, but nobody is raising their hands as of yet.
So if you're on Zoom and you wish to speak, please raise your hand.
Seeing none.
Okay, then we will close public comment on this project. Thank you. All right, now we're moving on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Villia?
Well, I think Carol brought up a very good point. I mean, if there could be some design measures to mitigate the sound disturbing your neighbors. I mean, it should be part of the design to create that barrier that, and of course, and there's administrative work as well coming from Calicraft that you can coordinate and see how you can mitigate this as well. So, but I'm glad someone speak up from the community because that really, it's not just an architectural issue of colors and materials and everything, but it's how the community surrounding this building or this proposed building is being affected and how they sense that that something has to be done to become good neighbors with that building.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Case?
Hi. Okay, so I had a couple little things I wanted to mention. So I had talked about how there's landscaping on the, where's north? On the east side of the driveway coming in, and I thought it'd be cool to do something there that's like pulling you down the drive aisle. So it sounds like maybe it's on brand to do some kind of cool art thing, or I don't know. It just seems like there's an opportunity in that space there, and it's just a line of trees, which I think are great because there's a big building behind it, but something else cool could happen there. I also feel like the buildings, and I realize it's early days, but the buildings especially the storage, would be well served by some landscape at their base. And I think in some of the renderings we see that, like more so on the Calicraft, but in the landscape plan, it's not obvious, especially trees. So I just think that's important. Everything gets hot and really exposed to the sun, so just throwing in trees everywhere we can, especially scaling down the height of the storage building. I really think it'd be cool to have a connection to the canal trail. I recognize it's not easy, but I think having an opportunity for people to get there that's not quite so car-based and dependent on like going through the maze that is Shadelands right now. I also know tons of people are at Encore. I am one of them, the parents who's there all the time, and it'd be cool if there was some kind of a safer than crossing the street just in a crosswalk connection. I think that would be fun. Just an idea. In regards to the signs, I feel like the Calicraft logo on the side of the building, it doesn't bother me that it's really big because it feels artful, but I feel like it could be a little bit smaller so we don't have to be quite as out of the range of what's acceptable for the city, especially, again, I don't want to put too much pressure on the rendering, but you can already see there's some landscape that's kind of covering it. So there's a part of me that feels like it could be smaller and a little higher and still look cool and not be so far extending those exceptions. The skyline-ish one, the really high one on the storage building, I'm not really supportive of that one. It feels like the building's pretty significant. I feel like it's almost to our advantage to have it more subtle, and the signage is directional to get you there. It seems like having it really broadcast, if it's not where you're going, doesn't feel really that necessary. So I'm more supportive of wayfinding signage for that one. And I know I'm such a pain for saying this, but I realize we combine, or you guys combined the Calicraft and the storage sign into one to try to be respectful of some of the standards, but them being one is, I just don't like it. I don't visually like it because they're just different animals, and I think trying to have them have one relationship is funky. And I realize that creates more problems, so I apologize. This has been mentioned, but I just want to reiterate, I think hiding that EVA as much as possible is going to serve you. And I know we've done a bunch of things where it's like turf cell or some kind of different paver, and I think raising it is helpful, but just as much as you can, making it really apparent for somebody visiting, like, don't go straight, you go this way. That's not dependent on signage. Like, I think making the site as legible as possible without signage is best. And then in comment to me asking if you're chatting with the community, I think you're really well plugged into your customer. It sounds like maybe you need to think about the distinction between customer and community and neighbors, and that sometimes they're not always the same, right? Ideally they are, but sometimes they're not. And so I think just making sure there's a conversation about hours of operation or noise mitigation and what you guys can reasonably do within your project to make the neighbors feel a little more comfortable, because I'm sure there's a balance, and just making sure that's a part of the effort.
Agree.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. One comment I guess I would make for Calicraft is might be worth your while to do community outreach to the neighborhood that's on the other side of the canal. I don't know, maybe have a workshop or something, get community input from those neighbors as to what works or doesn't work for them, to see if you can, find a more mutually beneficial feelings one way or the other. I had a crazy idea until I realized the setbacks don't allow it. I was listening to the residents who spoke tonight, and I was like, well, gosh, if we put the storage facility by the canal and you had Calicraft where the storage facility is going, that might mitigate most of the issues, and it would put Calicraft more front and center than the storage facility. So maybe it's worth looking for a variance on the setback. I don't know if that's been discussed or asked. I don't know if it's, possible. That's a planning commission sort of decision, but I like to come up with crazy ideas. So that's my crazy idea for the evening. Overall, without regard to which building sits where, I think it's a pretty good use of the site. When I first heard storage facility, I felt pretty negative about it, I'll be honest. Looking at the rendering, it's not a bad-looking building for a storage facility, especially, when you look at what's out there for the one that exists off of Oak Grove. There's probably some more you can do with that building. I don't know what you could do to modulate the top line so it just doesn't look like this one big tall run. Maybe some, and I'm not an architect, I'm a resident at large, that's my role on the commission, so I use layman terms, like if somehow it's articulated a little in and out or up and down on that top of the elevation might make it a little less box-like. I like the glass. I like a lot of the vertical elements. So overall, I'm not opposed to that building. And now that I've learned more, thank you, about the storage business, I'm not as feeling as negative about it, hearing about, the number of customers that come on average, et cetera. And I believe people probably really need the storage space. On the colors and materials, I need to go up and look at the board, but from here, it doesn't look it looks pretty decent, but I want to go see it up a little more closely. I actually like the string lighting you show in the renditions. I was imagining myself sitting there with the beer and the food, and kind of makes it feel like a backyard at home. But I also understand that the neighbors got all this light, up against their neighborhood. On the signs, I'll just say I basically agree with Commissioner Case. I think the interior sign that's going to be on the inside wall that you would see through the glass, call me crazy, I think that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of neat. And it's different, right? And I definitely agree that over the last 2.5 years I've been on the commission, we have been approving what we call skyline signs, the signs above 25 feet at the top of buildings for primary tenants. But there's specific reasons we do it. And I agree with Commissioner Case that I don't think you need that on this building tucked in the back of the flag. You need the wayfinding signage up in front as well. And I also agree with Commissioner Case on the merging of the two signs into one monument. It looks like you just took two different signs and glued them together. It might be better separate, or if it's going to be one sign, maybe architecturally or design-wise, that sign is something different. But I think the sign that you have there on Mitchell is going to be super important to bring people in. I think that's needed. I love the idea of connecting to the trail. I know where that bridge is. I go through the Shadelands on my bicycle a lot, where those buildings are, a little bit to the west of the project, and cross that bridge to get on the trail. And I always thought that was really cool. And yeah, wouldn't it be cool if you could walk down the trail and get, to the Callicraft? If it sounds like the only thing that's feasible is getting some kind of cooperation with the office building owners, because it's sort of be walking through their back parking lot. So those are my comments. So, Mr. Secretary, this is a study session, so we've had good Q&A and dialogue. We've shared comments. Is there anything you and staff specifically want from the commission at this point?
Well, yes, the Design Review Commission is tasked to provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission on the design aspects of the architecture, the layout, the signage, circulation to a certain point. And if I didn't say signage. So what we'd like to do is reach consensus for the majority of the commissioners that are here to provide that Planning Commission recommendation. So it sounds as if, to me, that there's an overall general support for what's been shown tonight, but there are some issues that we need to reach consensus on.
I have a quick question,
yeah.
sorry. What is the requirement of the 300-foot setback that's causing the site to not be oriented the way we both want?
I believe it's a note in the BP
It's a finding of the
that there's a storage facility in the business park needs to be 300 feet from a residential neighborhood, from the boundary of a residential neighborhood. And I think it's 500 feet from an arterial, which there isn't, the closest one was either Ignacio Valley or Oak Grove.
So it's a finding or rule within the business park zoning, if you will.
It's an objective design standard.
Okay.
Yep.
But it sounds like, if I'm hearing right, the commission would maybe want to recommend a flip-flopping of the buildings if it could somehow be granted.
Well, I don't know.
Or-
My gut reaction when I first looked at the plans was like, I'd rather the storage be tucked towards the back and the more active thing be closer to me in the parking lot in Encore where I always am. I would like it to disturb the neighbors less. I don't know if
Yeah.
the preference of the neighbors is to have a big storage facility or an active outdoor restaurant thing. I'm just curious. So it's like, I don't want some maybe at the time relevant objective design standard to now actually be causing us to flip the site in a way that's not to everybody's advantage. But if there are other arguments for why it's the way it is and that's preferred, I'm not gonna die on that hill. It seems,
Well, I could say something about some of the impacts that are being experienced for the residents.
Please do.
For Calicraft's been being monitored along with other businesses in town that have been playing loud music in accordance with their rebound permit. So live music in the business park is not allowed. So once the rebound permit is no longer valid, there will be no live music at Calicraft because it's not allowed. It's prohibited in the business park district. Live music is prohibited in the business park zoning designation. However, it's currently allowed only because of the rebound permit that Calicraft has for the COVID relief. Yes, I know about that. Yeah.
and how much longer is that active?
I don't know. We're currently working on an outdoor dining policy, and that would supersede, I believe, the rebound.
May I ask one question about the music?
The hearing is closed, sir.
Turn it around and face.
The hearing is closed.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't take more public input at the moment. But this is a study session. There will be more hearings for this project, including planning commission hearings. So there's going to be more opportunity for you to speak live and give input.
I would say that the Design Review Commission is tasked with the design of the project, whereas the Planning Commission is tasked with the use. So that's what we're talking about. So that's it.
Okay, so then maybe it's just a suggestion in our comments that we're like, hey, maybe this is worth digging into a little deeper. I don't know. That feels really nebulous and maybe not that helpful.
Okay, so.
I always feel that an idea floated is more helpful than no idea being floated.
Sure.
So is there consensus for taking a look at that?
I agree with that.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
or mitigation. I mean, try to see how you can stop that sound from being disturbing to the neighbors.
Okay.
Yep, so it sounds like you have full consensus on just asking people to think about that.
Right, okay. And as far as the signs go, we've got the 2 monument signs. It sounds as if there's support for a monument sign out at Mitchell, but not necessarily one that's, how large is it? Is it 50 square feet?
The freestanding sign,
Yeah,
yes.
where a 25-foot is allowed.
It's just, I mean, visually, it's not what I'm liking. It's not the size I have that much of an issue with. I do think a monument sign is appropriate.
I mean, for me, it's not the size. I think an oversized sign makes sense because of the flag lot. That almost seems to scream for it. It's at least all we're doing is looking at renderings of that and drawings, and it just looks like we took 2 separate unrelated signs and glued them together. And there may be something design-wise on that could be much more attractive. But so far,
Consensus that it's a design issue, not necessarily a size issue?
Yes, I don't mind this.
Okay.
yeah, so design issue.
Okay, and the monument sign, monument sign in the back, it's technically a monument sign, but it's a logo on that sound wall, on the return of the sound wall that goes back. See, that's what you would see when you're driving in a car down the parking lot. I didn't hear a whole lot of discussion about that.
I don't mind that one.
Yeah, I think that's okay as well. So I think you okay with that, Commissioner Valia?
Okay,
I have no, take no.
Objection? Okay.
okay. Skyline sign, I heard, I didn't hear support for that from at least 2 commissioners.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Case and myself don't believe that's warranted. The skyline sign at the top of the storage
Oh,
facility.
yes, no.
Okay.
That's, okay.
So I think you have consensus. Hey, we're doing really good tonight. We're getting a lot of consensus.
Yeah, I mean, when we reach consensus, it just really gives the applicant a little bit better, solid,
Yeah.
focused direction, right? Also, the super graphic, there was a statement about it being okay, but might not be that, doesn't need to be that big. Is there consensus on that statement?
The Calikraft logo on the side. I actually like that it's kind of big.
Yeah, I
just
like
feel
it.
It can
Yeah.
be smaller, so it's not
For
quite
such a stark, I mean, building that says nothing, I mean, signage or that symbol becomes part of the architecture.
Okay, is the size, is that shown appropriate, or should they look at maybe reducing it a little bit?
I'd like it reduced a little bit.
We have consensus on that?
I can support that.
I can support that as well.
Okay.
I like
Yeah.
it big, but,
But I think it looks nice. I would agree. It's,
yeah, it's part of the architecture.
Yeah.
It's part of the building.
yeah.
And in that location,
Okay.
does really well.
And then the non-direct illuminated sign inside the window on the wall, inside the building and that's high too. That might end up being a skyline sign itself. So that might need, I mean, it's gonna be part of the
yeah, it's
conception
a-
for overall signage and then possibly for skyline.
It's an interesting concept, and
It's perfect.
is it technically a building sign if it's something, many companies
It's a wall
put,
sign. It's
yeah,
technically a wall sign.
even though it's an interior wall.
Yes,
With
it's
windows.
within 10 feet of the interior. Yep.
Oh, that's the cutoff, is 10 feet of the interior. Okay, then you just killed my argument for it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I
because-
still like it, but I'm just one of 3 here this evening.
No, but I like it too. I think it's more like
Okay.
graphic design. If it wasn't for the 10 feet thing that you just mentioned, it's graphic design.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So it sounds like there's consensus for that as an exception.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, so by those statements alone, there's support for overall, both uses exceeding their 200 square foot of signage, sounds like.
Oh, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right,
This case, yes.
and then I don't remember any specific issues with the storage building, except that maybe look at softening the base with more landscape.
And if it's in any way possible, is there any way to get rid of on the top, to do something to enhance the stark, straight roof line? Now, that's just Charles. I don't know if any of the other commissioners think that makes sense or appropriate or not.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, not for the building.
I'm going to defer to the architect.
Thank
So I'll strike that feedback of mine.
Okay? Okay, and Calikraft building, I think the biggest issue there was kind of the road.
The EVA.
It is.
Yeah.
And look at either maybe blocking that road or
Or finding a way around the road and giving the space to the building.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Valia had a great point about if you didn't have the road cutting between, you could probably do something pretty spectacular with that outdoor space, a continuous outdoor space for Calikraft, and
Right.
maybe the emergency access and everything else. You make the right turn and go around the back of the house side.
Exactly.
Because
Okay.
I think that can make a dramatic difference the way you described it.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Charles.
Did I miss
Thank you.
anything?
Can you go back to the other slide, please, Brittany?
What slide?
That one. Tree removals. I hate seeing trees removed. I did, believe it or not, I do look at the arborist report, and what I tend to do is look at the list, the inventory, what's highly protected, and how many of those are going to get displaced. It looked like very few highly protected trees were going to be displaced. And so, and then there was a large percentage of the trees that were, I guess, medium likelihood of surviving all of this. So from that standpoint, and with planting of lots of new trees, I was okay with the tree removal. Anything from Commissioner Valia or Case on the trees?
And I didn't go through this. I didn't do the homework like you did.
I did go through it. There were none that were breaking my heart to deal with. Their parking lot trees for the most part.
And also, there was mentioned by Ms. Vogel, that there was some lighting issues, so we'll make sure that we show lighting. I'm 99% sure that the lighting shown is shielded and facing inward and shielded
Exactly.
inward. So we'll make sure that
It can be
it's
done.
exposed at the final design review, should it get here.
Yeah. And that's a requirement for the lighting,
It
is
is.
that it is shielded, right?
Correct. Okay,
Did we give you what you need, Mr. Secretary?
I think you did.
All right.
Woohoo.
We are happy to please, to serve at your pleasure. All right, then we will close our public hearing on the Secure Space Calicraft. Thank you, everybody who presented and answered questions and joined us this evening. All right, commission considerations. And we have one item on this agenda, Design Review Commission meeting start time. And it's considering a request to the city council to change the regular start time for Design Review Commission meetings to 6 PM from 7 PM. I'll admit that I have been asking for this topic or this change for a while. And the thing that finally triggered me to ask the secretary to see if we can make it an official item was that I saw Planning Commission was going through that request, and now they're just waiting for City Council, I believe, to approve their request. And if theirs gets approved, we would be the only commission meeting at 7 PM. Everybody else would be at 6 PM. So, and it would, what do we need to do to go through this to discuss it properly, Mr. Secretary?
Well, again, I think we would need to reach consensus. I don't know that we need to take a formal vote, but there's three of us, or three commissioners here, so it's, I mean, you could do this really quick by saying, I support this, or if there's any discussion items issues that you'd like to discuss. There's a short memo that mirrors the same memo for the Planning Commission. Should you recommend that the council consider changing the manual from 7 to 6 o'clock, it would take a resolution to the city council, and they would need to approve it. That would likely happen fourth quarter of this year.
Commissioner Valia, comments or?
No, I support the idea of 6 o'clock. That means I will have to leave work earlier.
So that would be a favor, right?
It's a good idea.
Commissioner Case?
I support it. I think doing it earlier is easier on me. I think it's also mindful, or we should be mindful about like the sub-consultants who come and present to us too. So since I'm often on that side, I think earlier would be
yes.
nicer for
That's
me as
correct.
well. So I think and then staff doesn't have to hang around quite as long. I mean, I feel like in general, it's the way to go. My only concern was if people have an issue physically getting here on time, like I was a great example of this evening. But I think it makes more sense, especially if all the other commissions are doing it too. I don't want to be the one rogue one,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah.
And obviously, I support it. We, years ago, because I've been on the Contra Costa County Merit Board for a really long time, our meetings used to start at 7:30. We now start at 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think everybody was pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've,
It's difficult when some of, like, I remember Amy's. It just goes really late, and it's late, and
Yeah.
it's asking a lot of people to be here really late. So starting an hour earlier, I think would. What
And-
do you guys think? Does staff have a strong opinion? Does it matter one way or the other to you guys?
Well, that's a good question.
It's staff that I've talked with would support it. Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know about Brittany personally.
I was waiting for Brittany to say, I like being here late.
This is my favorite way to spend my evening.
No, just hit the button. And as I
Sounds-
recall at the previous meeting when this was brought up for the first time, Commissioners Killian and Commissioner Newsom also showed some support for
Yeah.
that as well. We wanted to make sure that it was aired to all 5 commissioners and
Yeah.
everybody got
All right, well, it sounds like we have consensus on that.
go time.
It's go time, thank you. Are there any other considerations, Mr.
There-
Secretary?
There are none.
Okay, moving on to commission member and staff reports or announcements. Do we have any reports or announcements from any of the commissioners?
No.
I have none, so we'll close that item and we'll move to adjournment. We're adjourned.
Thank you.